as Carl Czar. Oh, he's in the booth. I got to bring him in. At the time that we're talking about the lies that they put on China's economy. So I'm going to bring him in the booth right now. My guy Carl is in the booth. How's it going today, Carl?
Hey, Rashid, how's it going?
I'm glad you're in. And you came in at the right time, though, Carl, because I'm reading this article. And I'm saying, first of all, they mistelling the people that self-preservation is the first law of nature. So even if China had incurred all of these huge debts, before China collapses upon itself, it would call in the debt that the Europeans and the U.S. owed to them. And you see what I'm saying? But nobody ever adds this into their equation when they talk about Chinese debt. And before you come in, I want you to hear the first part of this writing by somebody from Citibank. So it says right here, the title of the article is China Dealt Crushing Blow as Economy May Never Overtake U.S. And then it says, China may never surpass the U.S. to become the world's largest economy, a leading investment bank has claimed. Nathan Sheets, a global chief economist at Citi, cited China's soaring debt levels, its aging population, and its property crisis as factors that would hinder it from knocking America off the top spot. Now, what have you to say about that? Because I know you have something to say about that.
They write this kind of article like every 2 years. I mean, they've been writing this kind of article for the last 10 years. I mean, before that, they instead of saying China's is not going to overtake US, it would just say, oh, China will collapse. Gordon Chan has been selling this shit since like 2001. I mean, like literally 2 decades ago. And the thing is, when they talk about debt, they don't tell you there's good debt and there's bad debt. What is good debt? If you get a debt to finance your education, to build infrastructure, build bridges, build highways, build high-speed rail, build airports, build ports, those debts in the long term, you gain it back by increased economic activity and increased economic integration. But there's bad debt. Bad debts are consumer debts. When you take a loan to buy big screen TV, to buy a big car, to buy a big house. I mean, a house you can live in, okay. But to buy a luxury car, to buy like a luxury, I don't know, Gucci bag or something. Those debts you have to work your ass off to pay back. So this is a difference. Like Chinese are taking on debts to build amazing infrastructure in their country. They covered the entire China with crisscrossing with high-speed rails, which United States will never see.
坐火车每次有一种浪漫感，
是
吸引人。
实际上我现在很喜欢坐火车，火车还是比较舒适一点，它的机动性也比较强。首先的考虑就是。咱们现在开始跑到300了。
At the same time, they also complain about, oh, China's high-speed rail is not profitable, blah, 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 because they're taking a lot of debt. First of all, the whole point of public infrastructure and public transportation is to serve the public. The U.S. mentality is if you don't make a buck, it's a failure. If somebody at the Wall Street is not making a buck out of it, this is a failure. So this is a fundamental difference between United States and China. In U.S. we have a country run by Wall Street types. So when they look at China through the Wall Street lens, oh, it's all out of whack. They're not going to make money from this. They're taking a lot of debt. But guess what? Year after year, Chinese people are eating better. They're living better. They have more stuff. They're sending their children to be educated abroad. They're traveling. Hundreds of millions of Chinese tourists are traveling around the world. I mean, these are visible changes. People can go visit China today. China is wide open for foreign tourists nowadays. You can visit China today and see the physical changes. See this like ultra modern cities. You can ride the high speed rail, but these pundits will keep on telling you, China is going to collapse. China is, it's never going to be as good as United States. This is just copium, man. And the more the U.S. falls behind, the more of these kind of copians get produced because people need that to convince themselves now U.S. is not doing too bad. After all, China is collapsing. They've been selling that stories for the last 30 years. While China continued to rise.
They keep regurgitating this part that the Chinese economy may not surpass the U.S. economy when we have all anecdotal evidence that it surpassed the United States in purchasing power parity in 2014, 2015.
And Mr. Putin pointed that out in his
Yes.
Tucker Carlson
Yes.
interview. When Tucker Carlson was bringing China as the boogeyman, they're like, aren't you just exchanging one colonial power for a more less sentimental, less forgiving colonial power? First of all, nobody in the world think of United States as a sentimental or forgiving colonial power. That's just bullshit. Nobody buys that shit outside of the U.S. borders. And it's a pure projection to say China is a colonial power, and much less like is not as sentimental and and unforgiving as United States. I mean, that's just BS. And Putin set him straight. He said, look, Russia and China are neighbors. We have been living with each other for centuries. We know how to deal with each other. And the fact that the Brics is rising, it's a fact. It's like the sun is rising in the east. You either learn how to deal with it or you don't. This is a problem. And Putin was very good calling out when Tucker Carlson said, well, do you think would make a difference if there's a different set of leadership in Washington? And Putin said, look, the problem is the mentality of U.S. hegemony and its need for the dominance over the world. If you don't get rid of that mindset from the U.S. the political elite, nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change. And he listed examples when he had dealing with Clinton, he had dealing with Bush, and it's the same. And at the end of the day, he will go to Clinton for something, go to Bush for something. They're like, oh, okay, that's reasonable. Let me check with my people. And then later they always come back and say, sorry, can't do it. So it almost seems like U.S. president are not even the ones calling the shot, which we know they don't. We have Biden here, who is literally have dementia, which is confirmed by the Justice Department leaks, and so anybody can be president of the United States. You can have a pickle jar as the president. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The deep state is running things, and the problem with the deep state is they have this bug of U.S. hegemony in their head. Everything must be done to justify the U.S. hegemony over the world. And like Putin correctly pointed out, as long as that mentality is not going away, you're going to end up with the same shit.
I think that's a fair assessment. The question is what comes next, and maybe you trade one colonial power for another, much less sentimental and forgiving colonial power. I mean, is the Brics, for example, in danger of being completely dominated by the Chinese economy in a way that's not good for their sovereignty? Do you worry about that?
Well, we have heard those boogeyman stories before. It is a boogeyman story. We're neighbors with China. You cannot choose neighbors just as you cannot choose close relatives. We share a border of 1,000 kilometers with them. This is number one. Second, we have a centuries-long history of coexistence. We're used to it. Third, China's foreign policy philosophy is not aggressive. Its idea is to always look for compromise, and we can see that. The next point is as follows. We are always told the same boogeyman story, and here it goes again, through an euphemistic form, but it is still the same boogeyman story. The cooperation with China keeps increasing. The pace at which China's cooperation with Europe is growing is higher and greater than that of the growth of Chinese-Russian cooperation. Ask Europeans, aren't they afraid? They might be, I don't know. But they are still trying to access China's market at all costs, especially now that they are facing economic problems. Chinese businesses are also exploring the European market. Do Chinese businesses have small presence in the United States? Yes, the political decisions are such that they are trying to limit their cooperation with China. It is to your own detriment, Mr. Tucker, that you are limiting cooperation with China. You are hurting yourself. It is a delicate matter, and there are no silver bullet solutions, just as it is with the dollar. So, before introducing any illegitimate sanctions, illegitimate in terms of the Charter of the United Nations, one should think very carefully. For decision makers, this appears to be a problem.
So you said a moment ago that the world would be a lot better if it weren't broken into competing alliances, if there was cooperation globally. One of the reasons you don't have that is because the current American administration is dead set against you. Do you think if there were a new administration after Joe Biden that you would be able to reestablish communication with the US government? Or does it not matter who the president is?
I will tell you, but let me finish the previous thought. We, together with my colleague and friend, President Xi Jinping, set a goal to reach $200 billion of mutual trade with China this year. We have exceeded this level. According to our figures, our bilateral trade with China totals already $230 billion, and the Chinese statistics says it is $240 billion. One more important thing. Our trade is well balanced, mutually complementary in high-tech, energy, scientific research and development. It is very balanced. As for Brics, where Russia took over the presidency this year, the Brics countries are, by and large, developing very rapidly. Look, if memory serves me right, back in 1992, the share of the G7 countries in the world economy amounted to 47%, whereas in 2022 it was down to, I think, a little over 30%. The Brics countries accounted for only 16% in 1992, but now their share is greater than that of the G7. It has nothing to do with the events in Ukraine. This is due to the trends of global development and world economy, as I mentioned just now. And this is inevitable. This will keep happening. It is like the rise of the sun. You cannot prevent the sun from rising. You have to adapt to it. How do the United States adapt? With the help of force, sanctions, pressure, bombings, and use of armed forces. This is about self-conceit. Your political establishment does not understand that the world is changing under objective circumstances. And in order to preserve your level, even if someone aspires, to the level of dominance, you have to make the right decisions in a competent and timely manner. Such brutal actions, including with regard to Russia and, say, other countries, are counterproductive. This is an obvious fact. It has already become evident. You just asked me if another leader comes and changes something. It is not about the leader. It is not about the personality of a particular person. It is not about the personality of the leader. It is about the elite's mindset. If the idea of domination at any cost, based also on forceful actions, dominates the American society, nothing will change. It will only get worse. But if, in the end, one comes to the awareness that the world has been changing due to the objective circumstances, and that one should be able to adapt to them in time, using the advantages that the US still has today, then perhaps something may change. Look, China's economy has become the first economy in the world in purchasing power parity. In terms of volume, it overtook the US a long time ago. The USA comes second, then India, 1.5 billion people, and then Japan, with Russia in the 5th place. Russia was the first economy in Europe last year, despite all the sanctions and restrictions. Is it normal from your point of view? Sanctions, restrictions, impossibility of payments in dollars, being cut off from SWIFT services, sanctions against our ships carrying oil, sanctions against airplanes, sanctions in everything, everywhere. The largest number of sanctions in the world which are applied against Russia. And we have become Europe's first economy during this time. The tools that US uses don't work. Well, one has to think about what to do. If this realization comes to the ruling elites, then yes.
And this is why we have stupid copian articles like this about China not surpassing the United States. In what terms? I mean, like, just freaking travel to China. You know, like you travel, you're gonna see ultra modern cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and you don't see the streets getting clogged up by homeless people like the way it is in the United States, because in China, they actually take care of their people. You know, they have people like family structures. If they have families who are taking care of they don't let the people who have problems wandering around the street, that the family take care of them. They don't just abandon them. And in the US, instead what we do is like, oh, we found there was a news where they found the homeless dug into some a riverbank, and they dig into a hole. So what do? They evict them. So these homeless people trying to form a community on their own with no help from their community, from the government. What you do, of course, you kick them out again. and this is what happened in the United States. And somehow they say, no, China is not working. Don't worry. United States may be bad, but China is also bad, so you shouldn't feel too bad about yourself. This is what really these kind of newspaper articles are all about. It's just hopium and copium.
Well, Carl, do they believe that people will continue to buy this propaganda that they continue to put out? Because common sense tells us, how can China be collapsing when the World Bank and the IMF stated that China was the only nation with positive growth? China had become the center of the global economy. It is the center of trade. Now, it's pretty much the largest trade partner to almost every country on the planet now. It is the largest exporter, like we often say, the largest importer. And on top of that, I can't let this point slide, because this is a major point, because they always try to use, well, it's a communist nation, it's this, but they implemented a plan, and they removed 850 million people from poverty and moved them to the middle class. That's the entire population of America and Europe together. So, I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Well, Rashid, we don't do that kind of things here in the United States. This is a U.S. government. I forgot which movie it is. I was thinking that in the end, the character played by what's that guy's name? He said, "Sorry, this is you forget. This is a United States government. We don't do that kind of thing."
I want peace on earth and goodwill toward men.
Oh, this is ridiculous.
He's serious. I want peace on earth and goodwill toward men.
We are the United States government. We don't do that sort of thing.
I mean, which is true. They in here, U.S., the poverty alleviation plan is join the military. Join the military. We'll get you out of poverty. Maybe. I mean, that's the deal we're ending up with. In their mind, they talk about, China may not surpass the United States. China may not, because in their mind, the most important thing is really the U.S. must remain number one for their world to function smoothly, right? I mean, it's still that same mentality of hegemony. But it's a very odd thing in the United States. It's because the mainstream media is being increasingly distrusted. I mean, people are seeing through a lot of bullshit in terms of domestic politics, and people are seeing through a lot of bullshit in some of the foreign policy. For example, the horrible atrocity being committed on Gaza, and some of these shenanigans U.S. is pulling in Latin America and Africa. But somehow when it comes to China, a lot of people just swallow the line, hook, and sinker of all the State Department propaganda. It's like, anybody posts like a remotely positive, fun video about China, and you're gonna have people saying, "Oh, what about this non-existent Xinjiang genocide, right? What about the Chinese human rights violations and stuff?" It's like, imagine if anybody just posts anything about United States and people question about the genocide and the real genocide that's being committed right now in Gaza, and the past genocide committed on Native Americans. Nobody does that. So I'm thinking, why do people do that? It's again to justify their superiority to Chinese and China, because that's the only thing they have left nowadays. The only thing, because if you're not part of the Wall Street elite, who is literally laughing to the bank, what do the common people have left? They can only climb to this vestige feelings of, oh yeah, we're still somehow number one. We're still like superior to the people in the global South. We're still at least we're still superior to the Chinese people. I think that's why these kind of Hopian and Copians still have a large market in United States. What do you think, Rashid?
Well, Carl, we see America and NATO together floundering and faltering in the Ukrainian situation. And Russia is outproducing the entirety of the whole Western military industrial complex by itself, right? And as Vladimir Putin says, that Russia has only started to do what they're going to do, and they've only used roughly 10% of their capabilities. So we see that, and then we see the stuff that's going on, the buildup and the for war in the Middle East. Again, America's involved again. And she's saying that now she's getting ready to pivot to Asia for a war with China. And she is now deploying long strike missiles to Guam and her her stealth bombers and her bomber planes to Guam and the surrounding areas. How is China taking this, especially at a time when there's talk that America may be covertly sending Marines to Chinese Taipei?
Yeah, actually, U.S. Army just deployed Green Berets, the special forces, to Kinmen Island, just like literally 3 to 5 kilometers from the mainland Chinese coast. People can look up Kinmen Islands on the world map and see how close it is to the mainland Chinese coast. It's like literally, it's if you're, I kind of feel sorry for these Green Berets. What are they gonna do? They're just gonna be like drinking beer and looking at the amazing Chinese cityscape across the water, and which they cannot go because they're stuck on this island as per U.S. directive. But like this is all distraction. Right now, U.S. can meaningfully pivot to Asia. This is a distraction from the current atrocities that's happening in Gaza, the U.S. impotence in face of Ansar Allah blockade in the Red Sea. I mean, look what's happening in Yemen. Yemen now is a major world naval power because they're redirecting 11% of the world shipping around the Cape of Africa to go around Africa because they cannot go through Red Sea. But Chinese and Russian shipping has no problem. Chinese and you had that British ship that recently was attacked. They tried to mask themselves as Chinese in their call sign that said, "We are a Chinese-owned ship." Of course, the answer Allah had better intelligence, so they hit them. Yeah. But the fact is that it's even reported that of course in the mainstream media like Bloomberg, they say, oh, China enjoys this unfair advantage. The Chinese shipping companies enjoy a huge discount on the shipping insurance through Red Sea. Well, duh, don't aid genocide, man. It's very simple. Do not aid genocide in Gaza. Then you can go through the Red Sea. Just follow example of China. Why can't you do that? Like it's as simple as that. Like the Ansar al forces in Yemen have made it very clear. We're doing this blockade to support Gaza. The people, and especially all these U.S. ships that's going to ship ammunitions and weapons to Israel, they're not going to pass. And it's really that simple. Right now, I mean, the mean is China is basically sitting doing nothing and win, right? But which the opposite of that is United States is doing all these somersault, doing all these mental gymnastics to justify the empire and failing everywhere. Like they can't meaningfully deploy asset right now to the Chinese coast because they're already deeply involved in Ukraine. They're deeply involved in Middle East. They cannot look away from Middle East as much as they may not want to be dragged into that conflict. But like I say, Israel is a golden boy. Israel takes top priority. Israel takes priority over even United States. Even takes priority over the domestic affair of United States. They have to go defend Israel no matter what. So that means all the resources right now is going to go funnel to Israel. It's going to go into the ineffectual U.S. operation against Yemen, which is completely nuts because they have already waged a proxy war on Yemen for 10 years since 2014. When the Yemen civil war started, U.S. have helped Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc., to blockade and starve the Yemeni population. And the Yemeni forces did not bend. And they're not going to bend just because U.S. now is dropping a couple bombs in Yemeni capital. They without boots in the ground, there's nothing U.S. can fundamentally do to lift the blockade on Red Sea. And even with, U.S. does not have the stomach for boots on the ground in Yemen, which would be a really stupid thing to do. So all they can do is there was a question when Joe Biden was asked, say, is the U.S. bombing on Yemen, is that helping with the situation? Is that helping lifting the blockade? And guess what he said? He said, well, no, it hasn't helped yet, but we will still keep bombing.
Working. Well, when you say working, are they stopping the Houthis? No. Are they going to continue? Yes.
So literally, he's admitting the strategy is not working, but they're going to keep doing it for the appearances, just to keep the appearances of well, U.S. is still number one, still is a world policeman. Very ineffective one, but we're going to keep doing what we're doing, which is completely failing at the moment.